Welcome to A Conversation with History. I'm Harry Kreisler of the Institute of International Studies. Our distinguished guest is Ambassador Lakhdar Brahimi, the United Nations Secretary General's former envoy to Afghanistan and to Iraq. A native of Algeria, he has devoted the great part of his 4-decade career to convincing people to choose peace over war. He has mediated efforts to bring peace in Lebanon, Afghanistan, Yemen, Liberia, Sudan, Nigeria, South Africa, the former Zaire, and Haiti. He also oversaw the production of the Brahimi Report, a comprehensive critique of the efficiency and effectiveness of UN peacekeeping missions. Most recently, he was a key player in the steps leading to the establishment of a new government in Afghanistan and represented the UN in efforts to create a government in Iraq. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to Berkeley.
Thank you very much.
Where were you born and raised?
In Algeria, in central Algeria, 100 kilometers south of the capital.
Mm-hmm. And looking back, how do you think your parents shaped your thinking about the world?
Not much, I'm sorry to say, because my father passed away when I was very young. I was 11. And my mother was a simple, uneducated peasant.
Mm-hmm. So what about your education? Tell us a little about your education, both in Algeria and elsewhere.
My education took place in Algeria and briefly in Paris, France. But I didn't finish. I didn't graduate because of the War of Liberation. I started studying law and political science, and I left in 1956. I had 1 year more to go to join our struggle for independence.
In what ways were you affected beyond what you just described by the struggle for independence by Algeria?
Oh, I think that has shaped our lives. The build-up to that struggle, to the violent phase of that struggle, and then the struggle itself, and then post-independence. What we did was really, preparing, fighting the war, and then doing the after-war. Sorry.
Looking back, do you think the lessons of that struggle are still relevant today?
I believe so. Positive and negative. I think what we have learned from that struggle is the importance of freedom, is the importance of mobilization, is the importance of justice, equality, and so on. But also, I think we now, looking back, we see all the mistakes we have made, all the things that were not right during the struggle and after the struggle.
The movie The Battle of Algiers is making the rounds both on campuses and in the Pentagon. Is that a good account in your view? I'm not asking you for an endorsement, but as somebody who participated.
It is. First of all, it is just about one short phase, which is the Battle of Algiers in 1957, I think, in the capital, in the Kasbah. But it is a very, very accurate account written by one of the main participants in that battle. And as a matter of fact, quite a few of the actors were playing their own role.
Mm-hmm. Does this experience in a liberation struggle impact your understandings as you became a negotiator in multilateral situations?
Most probably, yeah, sure, most probably.
Anything in particular stand out about that you understand that you might not have understood if you had not gone through such a struggle?
I think that probably I understand very much the people who rise against injustice. I understand even the excesses that can happen once you start fighting against injustice. Not to condone it, but to understand how you get there. I think there is that. There is also a natural and very, very strong empathy with the underdog, with the people who have suffered, people who have been pushed around, by foreigners in particular, but also by their own people. And I think I understand also how people who have struggled for independence, who have played a very important role, can nevertheless become baddies and abuse, you see, the power they legitimately reach and the support that they get from their people. Then they abuse it and forget. There is a distance that takes place between the people who did the fighting and those who call themselves their leaders.
Mm-hmm. So is it that power, the old adage that applies everywhere, power corrupts, basically, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes,
What led you into diplomatic work, both for your country at first and then into a multilateral context?
I don't know. I think I just drifted into it. I literally drifted into it in 1956 when I left Paris. I went to attend a student conference in Bandung, Indonesia, 1 year after the big Bandung conference. And I was asked to stay there to represent our liberation movement in Southeast Asia. That's how it started.
So you have because I know in reading about the negotiations in Afghanistan, you were very sensitive to the role of the outside actors.
So.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. I'm interested to know, after you've been in all of these negotiations in some terribly hot spots, what are the skills and the temperament required to be a negotiator? Students are always asking that question, and what you might share with us about that.
I have been asked that question once or twice, and frankly, I do not have an exhaustive description of those qualities. But I think that probably what you need is attention. I think what you need to know is that you are not going to come with a solution. You are not going to walk in on these stupid people who are killing one another, who understand nothing, but you are, of course, much better than they, and you have a solution. You just sit down and say, here it is for you. The solution is with them, not with you. Mm-hmm. And you have got to help them get it out, to help them produce that solution. So I think this is attention and the capability of finding that little common space that exists always between people who have differences, and then try to take them to that little space and see if you can help them enlarge it. But I think, one has to be always aware, as I told you, that you do not have the solution. The solution is there with the people who are involved in the conflict, not with you.
So it sounds like you're saying that patience is very important.
Very much so,
and,
yes.
and living with uncertainty, basically.
Yes, sure. I have a few, one or two expressions that I use often. One of them is navigation by sight. You go into these situations with instruments, the best you can have. But you've got to know that these instruments are not perfect, that your map is, maybe there are rocks out there that are not on your map. So you must be on the lookout. And if you hit a rock, you don't say, but no, this is not, it doesn't exist on my map. Even if it doesn't exist on your map, it's going to destroy your boat if you are not careful. So that is one. And so again, I tell my young colleagues, you've got to have, you don't need blinkers and certainties. You need to have, as wide a field of vision as possible. And also, please open your ears. Listen more than you talk.
You must have to have a sense of the politics of a place, of its history and its culture, too.
Yeah, that is also a very, very important thing. I think knowledge, that's another important thing. You need to know where you are. You need to know, why these people have had this conflict. And as I told you, you will get nowhere if you walk in thinking these are stupid people. That's why they have a conflict. Destroying their country, how stupid. There are reasons. You've got to understand. And there, what again I tell my people is that no matter how much you know, it's never enough. You will always discover after the fact that you've missed something. And even, you see, in Afghanistan, for example, I have been in touch with very highly learned people who know everything about Afghanistan. And we regularly discuss these issues, and very often we discover that we missed something, we didn't know something, there was something that we were wrong about, that we had misunderstood or ignored. And this is, you see, what happens, you see. So first time you sit with people, as soon as you start talking to them, this is your first discovery. Yeah, I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that. I didn't realize that it was like this. And so you've got to have, the mental disposition to readapt your ideas, your plans, your vision, on the basis of what you hear and find out.
You said in a recent speech that you have to navigate between ignorance on the one hand and arrogance. I'm restating what you said, sure. but that's
you put it much better than I did.
Yeah. Well, you're helping me understand a lot here, and I guess that. What I'm curious about, and it's very funny, the language you use, we just had Pamela Constable here, the deputy editor of the and she actually used this notion of looking, when you go to a place as a reporter, having a 360-degree vision, which
yes, I met her in Afghanistan.
And in fact, she sends her best wishes, actually. So that it's very interesting, and I guess that to be empowered to have such sight is partly the result of your own experience, but it also, the mandate that you have. I mean, in other words, when you're on when you are the representative of the UN, your legitimacy comes from that 360-degree angle in the UN, and then bringing it to the country to draw out new information about the locale.
Yes, of course, the UN is, brings in a lot of moral authority. It doesn't give you much money, and it doesn't give you any weapons or soldiers or anything, but it does give you a lot of moral authority. And you see, the mandate you go with is, is intimidating, and also is a source of respect that you gain because you have come with this mandate from the United Nations. But you have got to build on it. It won't last. That's not a capital that is going to take you very long. It gives you a good start. You've got to protect it and make it grow.
Let's talk a little about your experiences in Afghanistan, and later we'll talk a little about Iraq. And you were involved in negotiations in Afghanistan prior to 9/11, and then after 9/11 and after the conflict. Yeah. What had changed? Had a lot changed that you saw on the ground?
Very much so. You mentioned a while ago the importance of the outside players. I think in Afghanistan, the first time round, from 1997 to 1999, when I gave up, that is where I have seen these foreign players, do their worst. I think there is an expression now that is commonly used about these so-called internal conflicts, who are not really internal, because they have they have connections to the outside world. I think it's called transnational conflicts. What you see is that, unless these players from outside who have influence work with you, I mean, your chances of success are very, very limited.
And you're talking about the neighboring states.
Yeah. Neighboring, not necessarily only neighboring.
Yeah,
see,
right.
The notion of neighbors can be extended a little bit, but definitely. So Afghanistan is a landlocked country. A fly cannot go in unless it stops somewhere. Therefore, weapons, fuel, food, money will not go to Afghanistan unless the neighbors of Afghanistan are working, are cooperating, either being themselves the origin or the transit. During the Soviet occupation, Pakistan was the necessary, indispensable transit place that the Americans and Saudis were using to channel money and weapons to the Mujahideen who were fighting against the Soviet Union. And when we moved from that to a civil war, it was the same thing. Iran and Pakistan in particular were very, very much part of the problem. That I gave up in '99, saying that you, the international community, you, the Security Council, you send me out there to work on your behalf, but you are not helping me. What can I do? Who am I to do anything unless I do it on your behalf with your support? And I'm not getting that support. So I cannot do anything anymore. And I said, look, Afghanistan is a small country. It's a very poor country. It's an isolated country. It's a faraway country. But if you think you are going to keep that conflict within the borders of Afghanistan, you are wrong. It will spill over on all of us one day.
And unfortunately,
when that happened, then I think people understood. I went to see the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in London, Prime Minister Tony Blair, and I told him, look, you abandoned Afghanistan in 1989 when the Russians left because you won your war and you didn't care what happened to the Afghan people. And I gave up in '99 because I got no support from you. Are you sure I'm going to get the necessary support now? And I think in fairness and respect for him, he went out and said, we abandoned Afghanistan once, we are not going to abandon it the second time.
And the United States was also guilty of this sin, we should say.
I may say so, more than anybody else.
That's right. That's right. Now, so 9/11 comes, proving your point, namely that you can't leave this place alone and leave it isolated, because it will come back to bite you. And again, you were given the mantle. Talk a little about that, because I mean, at some level in your mind must have been, well, here we go again. Do they really mean it this time, that they will support?
No, I think again, just as maybe an amusing detail, when I gave up in 1999, the Secretary General told me, look, we are going, I think the word I used, because he had used it when I informed the Security Council, said, my mission is going to be frozen until such a time as there is a real opportunity to do something. So after the 9/11, say, your mission is unfrozen now. So I resumed, as it were, my work on the basis of that kind of agreement when I left in 1999. But I think I knew that what had happened was an eye-opener, not only to the United States, but also to Pakistan, who realized that after what has happened on the 11th of September, it was simply impossible to continue to play those games in Afghanistan, and that to leave Afghanistan as a playground for terrorists and adventurers was simply not possible anymore.
And it was very clear in your mind, as we've discussed a little, that who had to be invited to the table.
Yeah, sure. You see there, I also tell my colleagues that, look, we speak about something called the international community. Who are they? The international community is an elastic notion that varies depending on the problem you are talking about and where you are. The international community in Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, is much more important than France and Britain put together. So the international community are all the countries that are important. The United States definitely everywhere. The European Union, because it is very important, and also they are they do show a great deal of international responsibility. And then the players, the local players. I mean, that man Taylor in Liberia was a very important player in all the conflicts around Liberia because of his wicked intervention everywhere. So I knew very well who were the players that we needed to bring together. And this is, as a matter of fact, you see, one of the first things that you have got to identify. Who are the actors? There is a conflict in Afghanistan, right? It is the Afghans, but first of all, which Afghans? Then who else is a player? You've got to identify those players.
And they then have to agree to be part of the process, both the states and the groups that they sponsor, basically.
They have to, yes, you see, you have got to win them to your side. You are not going to do it overnight. You see, that's what we tried to do between 97 and 99. And at one stage, we thought that we had everybody working with us. What really, made me to decide to go away was that we got all these people, all the neighbors, plus Russia and the United States, to a meeting in Tashkent in July 99. They signed a very solemn declaration in which they said, we will not help any faction anymore, and we will intervene with others not to help any faction. 1 month later, there was, a Taliban offensive that was supported, financed, armed by some of those people who signed that declaration. So I'm wasting everybody's time.
In the after 9/11, there was a very elongated process, both in Bonn and then in a way all over the world, to actually knock heads together,
yes,
basically.
Sure.
So you must, in addition to doing this navigation, you then at some point have to bring people together, and you have to say, time is running out. We've got to have a deal, basically.
Sure. Yeah. You see, there again, I don't want you or anybody looking at us to think that all this is beautifully mapped out, and there is an element of luck, there is an element of trial and error. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed. It's not as beautifully simple as it may seem when we are talking about it. But I think you need to cajole people, you need to push them, and then, as you said, if it's necessary, to knock heads together. When we were in Bonn, you see, I was sitting with the Afghans. There were quite a few people sitting outside, representatives from the United States, Jim Dobbins and Zalmay Khalilzad, from France, from the United Kingdom, from Germany. I think we had representatives from something like 25 countries. So they were sitting outside, and I would go to them and say, look, I need you to talk to your friends. I need you to call Moscow. I need you to call Kabul, Karachi, Islamabad, Tehran. That was happening all the time. So there was negotiations there, but we were mobilizing support wherever we could get it.
And so it's a kind of a moving, you're helping to create a consensus through time,
sure.
Working the rooms, working the phones, and so on. Now, and in the end, I gather that the solution that may have worked in Bosnia or Kosovo isn't necessarily the solution that will work in Afghanistan.
Yes, there again, that is, again, a fundamental principle. No two situations are alike. It doesn't exist. So when you go from one place to another, you go with experience. You don't go with prescriptions. You have experience, and that experience will be very useful. But it's not prescriptions that you take. Look, this worked in Kosovo, so let's try it in Afghanistan. No.
So as I listen to you, it's really a process of thinking on your feet, drawing on experience, listening and moving forward in time.
Yeah. You see, that again, I think what you need, I think the word there is creativity. Roger Fisher has written beautifully well on the subject of negotiations, but he's the first to agree that he's not going to give you prescription to take to any conflict situation anywhere. I think what he is teaching you techniques. He's giving you elements of psychology. He is telling you, what makes people tick, what makes them angry, what makes them happy. But it's up to you then to see what the real situation there, what the real challenges are, what the real stakes are. You are dealing with people who have taken the responsibility of killing their own. because they think that they are right. They think that they are serving the interest of their people. They are not going to give that up easily just because you've shown up. So, again, problems may be not ripe for a solution. Look at Ireland, how long it took, and I'm not sure whether there is a solution now or not. Look at Sri Lanka. It's not, what is missing there is not just a brilliant negotiator. I think the objective conditions, as we used to say in the days when it was fashionable to speak about Marx and Engels, are not there.
I guess you were the head of the report, although I know you credit all the people who were involved in doing the Brahimi report, but one of the constraints on you in negotiations must be the extent to which problems and obstacles arise that have to do with the limits of the UN mandate, with the extent to which the UN is a body made up of individual nation states that have to agree to give the mandate and the resources to the Secretary. Talk a little about that, because that is something that can really tie your hand over and above the disaster that you're confronting on the ground.
You see, we can do it by by illustration. When we went into Afghanistan, in the agreement that we crafted that the Afghans crafted in our presence in Bonn, it was said that we will have a military force, multinational force in Kabul first. It was abundantly clear to the Security Council and everybody else that we were going to Kabul only because everybody was afraid that these Afghans don't like foreigners, they will not accept foreigners. So we say, okay, let's go to Kabul. We think it will be all right, and let's see. If it is all right, then I think it is important to expand this force outside of Kabul. In fact, the first week in December, when we arrived there, we saw very clearly that there will be no problem whatsoever. On the contrary, you see, the British, if there is one foreign force that would have left mixed souvenirs in Afghanistan, it's the British. The British were welcome. So in January, the Secretary General and myself and everybody else started saying, okay, let's expand the force outside of. We never got it. Never. I think that if we had had 5,000, we had 5,000 people in Kabul. If we had had another 5,000, we would be far more advanced than we are now in the implementation of the peace process. But we've never been able to have it. So, I told the Council several times, very, very politely, but I think very clearly, that it is terribly unfair to us, to come and tell me, Afghanistan is too dangerous for my soldiers. It's all right for me to go there. It's all right for you to send me there, you, the Security Council, especially the permanent members, to send me there. It's not dangerous for me. But it is dangerous for your soldiers who are well equipped, well armed, well trained. It is terribly unfair, really unacceptable.
So in a way, the part of our we focus a lot in these when we talk about failed states and failing states, we focus a lot on the situation on the ground, which is justified and so on. But what you're really suggesting is a failure on the part of the international community to often get its act together, to decide we want to do this, we want to do it now. But when they decide to do that, there really has to be an openness, because wherever it is, it's a new situation, and you don't know everything, as you've just said.
Yeah, but I think, a failed state is the responsibility of the people who have made that state fail. And those are generally the people of that country. They cannot escape their own responsibility. But when you decide that this needs fixing, that you, the international community, feel a responsibility to help, then I think you should go ahead and do it. And you should really do what it takes to do it. That very often we don't. It's always too little, too late. In Rwanda, that genocide happened because the international community and the Security Council refused to give, again, another 5,000 troops, which would have cost, I don't know, maybe $50, $100 million. The end of the day, not only had we 800,000 innocent people killed, but we spent probably $500 or $600 million just to clean the mess that we might have prevented if we had done the right thing at the right time.
The processes that are at work in the aftermath of a conflict are multi-track, and one of the key problems becomes coordinating, raising the money to get outside resources, ensuring basic security, the police function that you establish security, the whole question of reconstruction and creating a process where people feel that justice has been done and so on. One gets the sense that these things, there is really great difficulty in coordinating them, and that what we seem to have confronted in Iraq, especially, is a situation where the military technology that enabled the winning of the war, whether justified or not, does not create the conditions, or it does not necessarily involve the planning for all that must come afterward in terms of stabilization. So the metaphor, I guess, as I'm listening and thinking on my feet here as you describe your own process, it's almost as if that one finds a tumor, one removes it, but then one has to work on the body to heal the wound, to seal the place where the surgery. Help us a little understand that, because it's a very complex process that someone like you, as a negotiator on the ground, really has no control over.
Iraq is a different situation. Iraq is a country that has been invaded. It's not a country it's not a failing state that you want to have. It's a country that was functioning, good or bad, with a horrible dictator that you have invaded. So it's a different situation. But you are absolutely right that when the international community decides to help in a meaningful manner a country like Afghanistan, then coordination between the various actors that are involved in these processes is very, very difficult indeed. Some of those difficulties are objective, are unavoidable. I think quite a few are avoidable. And one of the things that I am talking about more and more is the excess of international personnel that descends literally on a country in situations like this. We, the UN, to start with, there very often are too many of us. And then the NGOs, the international NGOs. Every single NGO will rush because there is money to be had. And I think if we could find a way of controlling that, then we will diminish the pressure and the difficulties on coordination. It is generally accepted that the United Nations is the party that is qualified to ensure or attempt that coordination. I think everybody pays lip service to that role of the United Nations. But neither the NGOs nor the bilaterals pay real attention to this. But I think we are getting better at it, and I think in Afghanistan it worked. I'm told reasonably well, and definitely I think the role of the United Nations as the chief coordinator was certainly accepted there.
You raise an interesting point, this last point, because I think one can assume that many of these people who want to come in and help, whether through organizations or individually or so on, they're well motivated.
Absolutely.
But there is the corrupting element of power, even as one tries to do good.
Yeah, you see, there is first the what you might call the pride of the flag. You see, yes, I am interested in in helping Afghanistan, but I would like my flag to be seen. So if you tell me, why don't you join a group under the UN flag or something, that's a little bit difficult to accept. No, that's where egoism and will play. But I think there is a little bit more than that. I think that there is this scramble for resources. You see, the donors are the same. The people who give UNICEF are the people who give the small NGO from the United States or France or Britain. So you want to go and get your share. And I think, whether it's the tsunami or Afghanistan or Iraq, if you are there, you have a better chance of having a piece of the cake. And that is, at least for me, a little bit difficult to accept.
And I guess the problem becomes aggravated when it's a state that has an ideology that says, well, we will transform this part of the world in our own image and in our own definition of what freedom is, what democracy is.
Yes, that is, it's all right. After all, if you think that your system is very good, there is nothing wrong with telling people that, look, it's working with me. Why don't you think of trying it? Maybe it will work with you as well. That's not the problem. The problem is when you go somewhere and say, look, you are stupid. You've destroyed your country. Now move aside. We are going to do it for you. That's not only unacceptable. It doesn't work. It won't work. Unless the people do it for themselves, unless the people are themselves satisfied that this is what is good for them, it won't take root. Then I think that, you see, when somebody was asking me the other day that, President Bush is now talking about freedom for the Arab world, I said, well, that's great. I was talking about that 50 years ago. So if President Bush is talking about it now, that's very good. That's most welcome. I'm sure he doesn't think that, we never heard of freedom in the Arab world. I think we did hear about it. And we even tried to do something about it at one stage or another.
Help us understand what the world can do about terrorism. I mean, clearly your work in Afghanistan shows us how the international community can and must respond to straighten out a situation and over time a positive result. But there are other issues here, and I wonder, namely, the extent to which we can build up moderation. You know, and I'm guilty of this sin. I'm not saying we, but we're all working toward the fact that moderate elements emerge in the Islamic world, and that the center not be abandoned and taken over by people on the extreme and so on. You come from Algeria. You were part of that struggle. Are there and you assume this multilateral mandate. What insights can you offer us about the directions that we must take beyond these situations like Afghanistan, so that we foreclose the possibility of a situation like 9/11 occurring, basically anywhere in the West or anywhere?
Look, this phenomenon of terrorism, the way it manifests itself in attacking embassies, in what happened on 9/11, is something totally alien to my experience. I think it's very important to remember that I'm not talking about these kind of activities. This is totally alien. We never did it. We never thought of doing it. But if you had come to me in the late 1950s, when I was involved in that struggle that you are talking about, and you told me, look, this extremism is not good, moderation is better, I think I would have told you, thank you very much. We've tried that, it didn't work. Our objectives are legitimate. If you can help me get those, reach those goals, achieve those objectives, fine. Otherwise, we have been occupied for 132 years. It's enough. And if violence is necessary, we will practice violence. So I think today, if you are talking about this blind international terrorism that is an anger against humanity, that is something I don't understand. And I think it is understandable that you fight it by all the means. And I don't think they will be interested in talking to you because I'm not even sure that they have objectives. But if you are talking about other people, whether it is the Basques or the Palestinians or the Chechens, I think it's a different situation. And I don't think it serves any purpose to speak of one war on all forms of terrorism, of what you call terrorism, or I call terrorism. I think you've got to make sure that you are talking, you know what you are talking about, and that there is, in here too, there isn't one size fits all. And you've got to understand why are people doing what they are doing. Sometimes, at times one feels that what is being said in the West is that the fact that you are a Muslim predisposes you to this blind, stupid terrorism. And whether you are a Palestinian or a Saudi or an Iraqi, well, you are just, you are a Muslim, therefore you are a terrorist, and we are not interested in what motives you may have. I think this is wrong, and this is not going to lead to a solution of the problem. But I think if you really look at the problems, by all means, fight force by force, with force. But that is not what is going to solve the problem. Let me give you one example that I have used on several occasions. We have spoken about our liberation war. We have not spoken about our civil war. In the 90s, we have had terrorism of the worst kind by Islamic fundamentalists that your country, your people were refusing to call terrorism. 100,000 of our people were killed. Yet, when friends of mine in the security forces come and tell me we are making progress, we are defeating terrorism, the question I used to ask them is, are there still young people joining the ranks of this rebellion or not? If they are, then you are not winning anything. You are just killing some of your young people. And the second question is, why are our young people joining the ranks of this? These are our kids. They went to school with our children. What happened to them? If we don't ask ourselves these questions, we will not solve the problem. If we do not accept that we in Algeria were responsible for what has happened, it's not only those kids that are responsible. They are individually responsible. But as a society, we are responsible for what they are doing. If we do not understand that, if we do not accept it, and we do something about it, then we will just destroy our youth, because they will continue joining the ranks of this rebellion. I think it's the same thing. If you are talking about terrorism, I think we need to sit down and understand, what is making these people, put dynamite around their waist and blow themselves up, because they are Muslims, because they are stupid, because they want to go to paradise. Maybe some do, but I think most of them have other motivations.
So again, it's really this idea of really understanding what's going on the ground, and in fact, not making the mistake of calling an apple an orange. So you may have an occupation, and so that suggests that if you have an application, then we have to look at the history of people wanting liberation, and that is something very different from a failed state or a failing state.
From a failed state, and also from narrow ideological attitudes. You have that young man who destroyed that building in Oklahoma. What made him do that? He is probably somebody like some of our worst people, but definitely not like the Basque. You cannot say he and the Basque man, who, although the act is probably the same, are the same kind of people. You have also some very, very extreme Jewish organizations. I'm told that there was a rabbi in Israel who said that this tsunami hit the world because the world is supporting Sharon's decision to leave Gaza. So these kind of
twisted mind
is different
corners,
from objective situations that create anger and push people to despair and to desperate acts.
One final question. How would you advise students to prepare for the future in a world that through a slow process we will be resolving these conflicts, these situations? If they want to be a part of that,
that's the work of the professors, not.
Well, yes and no, because we have theories, but you have experience and the knowledge of practice?
I really don't know, but you see, probably I should stick to what I told you right from the beginning. Be modest, be respectful of others, try to understand. Again, trying to understand does not mean giving up anything of your ideas, of your aspirations, of your culture, of even your prejudices. But you've got to understand what the other guy is about. Even if at the end of the process you decide that there is no ground with this man or woman except to fight them. But understand first. I think this is what we need in the globalized world that is ours. Maybe we are moving towards a global village, but that global village, brings in a lot of different people, a lot of different ideas, lots of different backgrounds, lots of different aspirations, and I think respect and understanding will help that village function better than it does today.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us today, for coming to the campus, and congratulations on receiving the Stefan Reisenfeld Award from the Bolz Law School. Thank you very much
indeed, sir.
And thank you very much for joining us for this conversation with history.